WBC's Lester Holt is in New York right now. Lester, so what's the very latest?
Natalie, the latest is there is a limited transit strike underway right now in New York. After all-night talks broke down, the transit union officials announced that they would begin the first in a series of strikes, initially targeting 2 private bus lines that operate from Queens into Manhattan. Those private lines recently absorbed by the MTA. Unclear how many people that will affect. We're told they are actually on strike.
Greetings, YouTube. This is the Garage Autonomist. As the year comes to a close, for some reason this morning, I started thinking about the MTA transit workers' strike back in December 2005. Now, that strike crippled the city for 2 days alone, costing somewhere between $400 and $300 million a day. Not that I give a shit about that part. But anyway, while it was an inconvenience for those of us who work for a living and are working parents. In fact, I remember that at that time, my youngest daughter was only 6 months. Public schools were closed, and my wife was working from home at this time. So we were lucky in that it was only one of us who had to walk to work, and that was me. Now, at the end of the day, the strike was brought on due to stakes that were high for the MTA workers. You see, when bosses really want to fuck with you, they want to disenfranchise their laborers 10, 15, 30 years down the line. They wouldn't be happier if they could get major industrial workers and service people to be paper-hatted, quote unquote. Those very jobs ranging from digging coal, flying planes, or keeping an entire city moving. The Transit Workers Union, Local 100, and its leader, Roger Toussaint, decided to strike because negotiations broke down when the MTA board decided not to budge or listen. The principles at stake was not to let the board, which is made up of people who don't rely on mass transit or even work for a living for that matter, gut and tear down the retirement, pension, and wage increases for the MTA jobs, and further reverse past gains so that future generation MTA workers would still be responsible for the heavy lifting of getting us home or to work, but for less pay and no retirement. Hence, why I mean by paper-hatting a job. Plus, I remember also Toussaint appearing on TV informing us of the office workers at MTA who had not had raises in a while. This is what I call, or what would have been, the old labor union leadership. You think about the others who work, and you think about the years to come in terms of what the bosses might do to your workers. The strategy was brilliant in that we were talking about a whole city and some parts of New Jersey and outer boroughs affected by the shutdown just 3 days before Christmas, which would have affected people's plans for shopping. So while I'm walking 4 miles for 2 days both ways to work, it was based on one bitch of a political education from the Transit Workers Union. And that lesson was that those of us who work have the power to shut down society if we wanted to truly change things. And the bosses and the ruling class itself has to be reminded of that, just as we have to remind ourselves. This is the Garage Autonomist.